This video was brought to you by Brilliant, and the first 200 people to sign up using the link below will get 20% off an annual premium subscription. For the last few months or so, the UK government has been arguing with the EU over the Northern Ireland Protocol, the addendum to Boris Johnson's Brexit deal that replaced Theresa May's much maligned backstop. Anyway, after weeks of brinkmanship, on Monday the government finally published its solution to the issue, but it hasn't gone down too well with either the EU or the more moderate wing of the Conservative Party. So in this video we're going to be taking a look at the new bill, explaining what it does and trying to figure out if it's actually a good idea. Now, we've explained the Northern Ireland Protocol in more detail in countless other videos. My god, did we do a lot of videos on this back in the day. So if you want to know more about the protocol and the history behind it, then you can go and watch any one of them. But the TLDR is, it's basically the part of the Brexit deal that describes the trading relationship between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Basically, according to the protocol, Northern Ireland remains in the EU single market and customs union, which effectively means that there's a regulatory and customs border in the Irish Sea. But the precise location and number of checks was set to be determined later, mostly by the protocol's joint committee. Now, obviously, this solution wasn't ideal. It created a border within the United Kingdom, required a whole lot more border infrastructure in the Irish Sea, and upset the unionist community in Northern Ireland. But it's obviously worth mentioning that the alternatives were also pretty problematic. The government could have instead put up a border on the island of Ireland, but this wouldn't have gone down too well with the Irish nationalists, and probably would violate the Good Friday Agreement. Or they could have committed to regulatory alignment with the EU in order to soften the border. But that clearly wouldn't have gone down well with Brexiteers, both in the country and in the Conservative Party. So, with no other good options on the table, Johnson opted for the Northern Ireland Protocol and presented it as part of his perfect oven-ready Brexit deal. However, in July 2021, Johnson and his government decided that they didn't actually like the protocol as much as they first claimed. So they published a command paper setting out how they thought the protocol ought to be changed. As we read it, the command paper essentially expresses 3 objections to the protocol in its current form. Firstly, it claims that the checks involved are too stringent, noting that the Northern Ireland Executive has estimated that the volume of checks coming across the Irish Sea represent approximately 20% of the EU's total, and more than any EU member state, despite the fact that Northern Ireland's population of 1.8 million represents just 0.5% of the EU. Secondly, they claim that the protocol, quote, risks undermining the functioning of the Good Friday Agreement, which is the 1998 treaty which governs unionist and nationalist relations in Ireland. According to the command paper, unionist opposition to the protocol has been stronger than expected, making the protocol unsustainable. And to be fair, the largest unionist party in Northern Ireland, the DUP, have said that they won't join in any power sharing agreement until the protocol is sorted, which is a pretty major, if potentially foreseeable, problem. Thirdly, the command paper claims that the protocol's reliance on European law and the European Court of Justice is a violation of the UK's sovereignty, and that the government only signed up to it because of, quote, very specific circumstances of the negotiation, which is basically a polite way of blaming Theresa May for taking a too soft line on negotiations. Anyway, the command paper then concludes that the government is within its rights to trigger Article 16, the emergency clause in the protocol, that states that if the protocol leads to serious economic, societal, or environmental difficulties that are liable to persist, or to a diversion of trade, then the UK or EU can universally suspend parts of the protocol. Now, all of this didn't go down too well with the EU, who basically told the UK that triggering Article 16 would lead to a trade war. In the end, though, the two sides agreed to negotiations, and the UK backed down on its Article 16 threat. Unfortunately, though, these negotiations have proved fruitless, And while the EU has been willing to reduce some of its checks, it's not been enough for the UK, who not only want fewer checks, but also no role for the ECJ. As a result of this impasse, negotiations were paused in February and haven't restarted since. So instead of negotiating, the UK government has apparently decided to amend the protocol unilaterally, and they're doing this via the new Northern Ireland Protocol Bill, which was presented to the House of Commons on Monday afternoon. And that bill contains basically 4 policy proposals. Firstly, the UK wants a so-called red-green lane for customs and agri-food with a trusted trader scheme. Essentially, this would mean that trusted GB businesses will be able to say in advance whether their goods are going to Northern Ireland, the green lane, or to the EU, the red lane. And if they were going to Northern Ireland, then they wouldn't need to do any customs or sanitary or phytosanitary paperwork, reducing the number of checks on the border. Secondly, the UK wants a so-called dual regulatory regime for goods regulations, which basically means that GB businesses would only have to meet the UK's regulation standards if they're selling stuff in Northern Ireland. Currently, by default, goods have to meet the EU's regulatory standards if they're going from GB to NI, unless they're specifically deemed not at risk of moving into the EU by the protocol's joint committee. Thirdly, the UK wants to take back control of VAT and state subsidy rules for Northern Ireland, which are currently limited by the EU state aid laws. Basically, the EU doesn't want Northern Irish businesses gaining an unfair advantage over their EU counterparts via outrageous state aid or VAT regimes, and as such, it maintains control over the matter. But the UK wants to get rid of this. Fourthly, and finally, the UK wants to get rid of the ECJ in dispute settlements, and instead have some sort of neutral arbiter. This would be akin to the deal that the EU currently has with Switzerland, which uses so-called sectorial committees in order to resolve disputes. So that's Britain's 4 ideas to make the issue better. But how will it all go down with the EU? Well, while there might be some room for agreement on the whole red lane, green lane thing, the EU are apparently open to reducing customs checks after all. The rest of the proposals just aren't going to fly. And that's because the EU have repeatedly made it clear that they think changes like this would represent a threat to the integrity of the single market, and that they think that the ECJ should rule over matters concerning EU law as it applies to Northern Ireland. And it seems that they're pretty serious about these objections too, with the EU set to take legal action against the UK over these changes. In fact, one senior EU official even said that without a doubt, this is the lowest point in the UK and EU's post-Brexit relationship, suggesting that not only are the EU very unhappy with this proposal, but also that negotiations are going to get a lot more difficult going forward, with trust significantly eroded by this plan. And the UK government kind of saw this coming, which is why the new bill implements all of these policies unilaterally, regardless of what the EU thinks of them, as well as giving UK ministers the power to unilaterally amend all but Articles 2, 3, and 11 of the protocol, as long as these changes meet one of the 9 pretty vague criteria. Now, making changes to a deal that you've already done without consulting the other side obviously looks pretty illegal. But the UK has argued that this is nonetheless consistent with international law, because, at least according to the UK government, this legislation is necessary to protect their pre-existing obligations under the Good Friday Agreement. Now, there's no guarantee that this argument will fly with the EU, and to be honest, it hasn't gone down too well with the more moderate wing of the Conservative Party either, which means that they might actually struggle to even get it through Parliament. But nonetheless, this marks a return to the Brexit days of old, and it looks like we're heading for another UK-EU confrontation. What are the odds that it works in favour of either side? Well, considering the UK has only just put forward their legislation, and the EU's not really had a chance to respond, it's a little too soon to tell. But as time plays out, we'll be able to find out who looks more likely to come out on top. And if probability like that isn't your thing, then you probably ought to check out Brilliant. Brilliant is an online STEM learning platform where you can learn everything you need to know to better understand the modern world. In fact, that's kind of what TLDR is all about too. Taking complex subjects that seem scary from the outside and turning them into something more understandable, and in turn, making the world a less daunting place. And understanding STEM better could mean all kinds of things for you. It could help you thrive at work, improve your grades at school, or even just help you learn something exciting and new. No matter what your reason is, taking some time to learn with Brilliant is a whole lot more fun than the boring computer science lectures that I had to take at university. There's no long talks and no textbooks. It's all about interactive experiences that have been put together by experts in their field to help you learn by doing. So if you want to take your next step with STEM and support the channel at the same time, then you can sign up to Brilliant at brilliant.org/TLDR UK. And the first 200 people to do so will get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks for supporting the channel.